Honestly, I never thought I would say that RGB gives you more FPS performance, but here we are and here I am wrong again. Just kidding guys, a bit of a joke just to start off this video, because right here we have the ANTEC CX700 RGB ELITE. And this case is quite actually interesting, I do have to admit right from the start, because what we have here is 6 addressable RGB fans, of which 5 are reversed and 1 is regular, 120 addressable RGB. And when I say addressable RGB, they're fixed addressable RGB connected with Molex. So that's the only downside of this case. But then we have the price, which kind of brings to the point where it's quite interesting and appealing. So what you could do is switch it off completely, or have it in fixed RGB so you can't modify anything. And for you guys that actually love having the RGB spectrum or just fixed RGB in certain position, then this is the way to go. But other than that, it's completely like this. It doesn't change whatsoever. And of course, Molex tends to have RPMs at full speed, so I don't know if microphone picks up the sound from the fans, but it does create additional sound. It does create additional sound, and what I stated at the beginning, because of these fans we have an outstanding performance, and I'm quite shocked because it pulls vortex to create a better performance altogether, because even the GPU is lower than in any other case that I reviewed so far. So it kind of goes both ways, you know. I mean it's something that I didn't expect. But regardless of the fans, let's go through the case, because I really like the case and the case is really outstanding. First of all, this might be one of the few cases that actually has this side completely open, and I had to check the back just in case. It has this side completely open, fully ventilated, the front as well. Nice access to the IO ports because you have power on button. It's an RGB on off button. After that, then we have 3.5mm jack, which is a combo jack, and we have USB 3.0 and USB Type C. I think that's enough. The only thing that this button, the second button right here, that I thought it would be doing is actually changing the colors, but it doesn't. This is what it does. It switches on and off. That's it. That's really unfortunate. And shame it has Molex at the back, because this would be outstanding. With such a beautiful design, on top you have a mesh magnetic part that covers up the top part, even though since the fans are blowing towards upwards, you don't need a magnetic dust filter at the top, but regardless of that, it's still there. You have a dust filter at the bottom, which isn't magnetic, it's held by those hinges on the side. And right here on the side we have a dust filter. But let's go into this segment. If you go with this case and you place your ATX motherboard inside, which I do have to mention one more thing, it doesn't have a support for back connect whatsoever. But if you go and you place an ATX motherboard, don't place the GPU inside, because you won't be able to connect anything at the bottom. But when you do, push the cable for the GPU prior of placing the GPU, because the fans are kind of blocking the access to the holes at the back and accessing the headers on your motherboard for addressable RGB, PWM, USB 2.0 if you actually need it, and stuff like that. But other than that, two pegs are holding the side tempered glass, 2 pegs are holding the front tempered glass. It's really straightforward, and I love the shape, I love the design, I love how it's constructed. The Molex cables are attached with that tie, I don't know what's it called actually, but if you remove it, you could actually place the Molex connections in the bottom. So if you're on a budget and you want to have addressable RGB fans, this is definitely the case to go. But if you like the case and you still have some extra cash and you want to go with Vortex, just grab some fusion fans and place them here. Okay, it will be different because these are reverse blades, so it kind of goes into that segment. I don't know what to say. I'm digging the case, not liking the fans. So this case comes in black and white version, and we have 270-degree view with 4mm tempered glass on front and on the side, which does look quite nice without even having a pole here on the middle communication, and it doesn't have that much flex, so this is really nicely done, even though the case is really light when you remove the tempered glass and the side panel. It's really just too light, to be honest, but nothing bends in that scenario. Even when you tie up the screws at the top for the radiator or for the fan at the back, it's really nicely done. The one thing that I do have to mention is if you go with the Vortex 360 on top, the fan here at the rear is placed at the highest point. So my suggestion, because otherwise you won't be able to place a 360, just lower it down a bit so you get the space to place the 360 radiator on top, and this gives you an option to actually go with that. So as I said, we have 6 pre-installed 120mm fixed mode RGB fans. They are daisy chained because they're all connected to one Molex connector, and you do have to use a Molex connector to power them on, which is a shame. And to be honest, I would really prefer PWM and addressable RGB that is possible to modify, which would be much suitable for everybody, to be honest. It supports 2 radiators at the same time. This is interesting because it supports 360 on top and 240 on the side. But then the length of the GPU is limited to 270mm. So you can't go with a long RTX 4070 Ti Super like I did right here. But there's also a possibility if you go with a custom loop and you manage to squeeze everything inside, you could maybe just play around and go with a 360 on bottom, because there is enough space for headers to connect. You just need to do them prior of connecting the radiator and the fans here at the bottom. We have 7 PCI expansion slots here at the back. Maximum CPU cooler height is up to 160mm. GPU length maximum 410mm if you're not going with a radiator on the side. If you are, then as I said, 270. Hard drive and SSD storage, 2 3.5-inch hard drives in the power supply shroud, or you could go with 1 hard drive at the bottom and 1 SSD at the top, and 2 SSD caddies or brackets at the back, which is quite alright. Power supply maximum length is 210 with hard drive cage and 270 without the hard drive cage. I mean, honestly, I haven't seen a power supply longer than 180, I think, or something like that. At the back we have quite nice space. We're talking about 23mm for cable management at the rear side. For the fan configuration, on top you can go with 3 120 or 2 140, side 2 120, and power supply shroud 3 120, rear 1 120. Now for the benchmarks, and this is what I stated, that the performance in RGB, which was a joke of course, but CPU in AIDA 64 Extreme Edition went up to 89 degrees Celsius, while the clock speed went up to 4800 MHz. And the GPU, which if you compare to every other benchmark that I did, went up to 60 degrees. So this actually is the lowest thermal for this GPU that I got. And in general, if we go with other 4070 Ti and 4080 that I had and 4080 Super, which were around from 62 to 66, 67, this is the lowest thermals that you'll get inside this case. I mean, logical, the fans are really spinning a bit higher. But then we go to Cinebench R23, 85 degrees constant on the CPU. We're talking about AMD Ryzen 9 7900X3D. Clock speeds from 4975 to 5000. And the interesting part, it had an average of 26,300, even above that, 320 in average. It even reached 26,437, which I was shocked, because usually what Vortex gets with this CPU is around 26,200, something like that. So I'm quite surprised with that. Shame about the fans. The case is outstanding. The design, the visuals, when we're talking about this concept of building inside this case, quite straightforward. If you like the case and you have the possibility to change the fans, grab some P12s from ANTEC, or grab any other fans that are much quieter, or at least have the possibility with PWM to adjust the RPMs, and that's it. Loving the case, not so much the fans. That's the only thing. But we have RGB spectrum. I don't know if it's somewhere, it's everywhere. I can't decide. The case is just nicely done. I have to admit, I'm really digging the case. Everything else is just, well, the fans, nothing else. The fans are just way too loud for my opinion, and I think you'll agree with me on that part. But I'll think you'll also agree that the case does look outstanding. Guys, that's it for today. I don't know what to say else. Satisfied with the performance, satisfied with the case. Link is in the description for you to check it out and to see the price and what I was talking about and why the fans are as such. And if you think this video or something else deserves a subscribe click from your side, then subscribe, hit the like button, click the notification bell. I'll see you very soon. Bye bye.